Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Srimad Bhagavad-gita, Chapter 4, Text 13, Translation and Commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Sri Krishna teaches us in Bhagavad-gita how to come to the ultimate perfection of life, which is to be spiritually situated beyond all material designations. Sarvo padhivinir muktam tat paratvena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. Nevertheless, he gives a social system to help those who are not on that platform to come to that platform. This morning I was talking about devotees who are liberated and don't care for any social convention. And postulating if they could fit into ISKCON, which is a society it's an organization within this material world. There are social conventions within this society. And I postulated that, giving the example of Srila Gaura Keshava Das Babaji Maharaj, that he wouldn't fit into modern ISKCON. Or maybe more correctly, we wouldn't fit into his understanding. He rejected anything except total, pure surrender to Krishna. So the organization of ISKCON is meant to help people to come to that platform. And then I thought of another, after giving the lecture, I thought of another example of Srila Vangshidas Babaji Maharaj, who was actually living at the time when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had organized the Gauriya Math. And the headquarters of the Gauriya Math was the Sri Chaitanya Math in Mayapur, and Srila Vangshidas Babaji Maharaj was living just across the river in Navadip. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur never invited, you come and stay with us, because the mode of bhajan of Vangshidas Babaji Maharaj was too unconventional for the organization of the Gauriya Math. And he would, from Mayapur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would sometimes arrange that devotees would go to bring things for Babaji, some offering for him, some firewood or some fruit to offer his deities, something like that, vegetables. But Babaji Maharaj, in his typical unconventional style, would even though the devotees were coming very humbly and respectfully, he would chastise them sometimes for no apparent reason. So seeing this and seeing Babaji Maharaj's unconventional style of worship, his unconventional style of everything, sometimes devotees in their minds had doubts or became somewhat offensive. So eventually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told, well, you don't go to see him, because you don't. The reason being that they were not fit to recognize him. Okay, say that. Or maybe to put that in a better way, that their understanding or their mode of worship was different. So a social organization is required within this world. A social organization is there in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, the social organization is based on service to Krishna. And in the spiritual world, the social organization is based on some kind of cooperation. Either the cooperation is there either by voluntary or by force, or a mixture. Force means people are afraid. If you do something wrong, you get arrested. But underneath, even though cooperation is there, everyone is cooperating because they think they'll get some benefit by doing so, but actually everyone wants to exploit everyone else. So the Varnashram system is a system to help people come from the consciousness of exploitation to gradually develop to the consciousness of selflessness. And from a vague selflessness, which is called nishkam karma, to work without personal desire, to focused selflessness, which is to focus on serving Krishna without any personal desire. Now this verse we're discussing today, Charto Varnyam Maya Shrishtam, the 4 Varnas were created by me, Krishna says. Varna means the different classes, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Same in Czech, right? And Varna also means color. So sometimes it's postulated that the Brahmanas are lighter skinned and then the Shudras are darker skinned, so this may be some factor also. And in India up to today, it's something very important, the color of your skin. You'll find they have advertisements for marriages that graduate Brahmin girl, age 25, fair-skinned or wheat-colored or something like this, they say. Wheat-colored, the color of wheat. Wheat?
Oh, okay.
I think they say straw colors. I can't know. I don't read the matrimonials very often. It can be kind of amusing. So there are the Chatur Varnas, and there are also, to complement that, the 4 ashrams, which you can say in Czech. All right. And Srila Prabhupada would often quote this verse, especially the first 2 lines. And he would often use this as an introduction or a reference to the Varnashram system. Here only Varnas are mentioned, but Varnas are completed by ashram. Varna ashram. Say Varnashram system, it literally means the system where there are 4 Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and 4 ashrams, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. And Srila Prabhupada spoke a lot about this, which might be surprising, seeing as he came to teach Sarvopadi Vinir Muktam, the pure devotional service which is beyond all material designations. So, if he came to teach the highest thing, then why did he stress so much on this interim stage of Varnashram? Because it's required to advance to that stage. Theoretically one can go from being totally wild and uncivilized and savage, which from the Vedic perspective means modern society. Wild, uncivilized, savage. Although modern society is well organized and intelligently organized, it's based on sinful principles. We were just discussing as we were driving that even the major religions of the world, even though they promote faith in God, they have so little knowledge of the desire of God that alongside they promote mass slaughter of animals, of cows, which are very dear to God. So Srila Prabhupada proposed to introduce Varnashram culture all over the world. It's a pretty ambitious proposal, isn't it? Prabhupada spoke of saying like, yes, our Krishna consciousness movement, we will close all the slaughterhouses, not blow them up. Some devotees, or they weren't fully committed devotees in New Zealand about 1974 or something, they got the idea to blow up a slaughterhouse. But actually, and they were serious about it, but the bombs exploded prematurely and they just killed themselves. Prabhupada was informed of this and he said, this is not the way to do it. So, instituting this culture it's at least as ambitious as trying to bring Krishna consciousness to the Western countries in the first place. But practically speaking, for the movement to spread very widely, and even for our devotees to come to the platform of human culture, then human culture has to be instituted, because we don't have it at the present time. Just a day in the life of a normal person is enough to just what people think is normal is just enough to send them to hell for thousands of years. Because they don't know. Pravriting chan, nivriting chan, jana navidura suraha. They don't know what is proper behavior and what isn't. Okay. And even though they may speak of morality, they again we were talking in the car about the power of Kali, the personality of Kali. And we were talking about that, and we drove past some big sign advertising some nightclub with 150 dancing girls. And this is possible in the age of Kali. Previously, that wouldn't have been possible. In we were talking about the religion. They upheld some kind of morality. The religious, the church, and the influence of the church has much diminished. One reason, of course it's very complex, but one reason that the Islamic world in general is against the Western civilization is that they consider that it brings in all immorality. That although in the Western country, in America they say it's good to fight in Iraq because the women aren't liberated. They need to be liberated, so we'll bomb them to pieces and whoever's left alive will be liberated. But then the Muslims are thinking that, we don't want them liberated, then they can become dancing girls. Well, we don't want that kind of liberation. There should be more control in society. So it's an ongoing discussion. And when the discussion stops, the bombs drop. Even within our ISKCON society, there are persons who are more inclined toward trying to institute the kind of society that Shastra talks about and Srila Prabhupada spoke so much about, in which there's a lot of control actually. Even up until recent times, I saw in India that a man may be 40 years old, married with several children, but he still completely follows what his father says. Some people complain that, in Indian society the women were so restricted, but actually everyone was. Mm-hmm. Everyone had to work under some superior. In the modern society, everyone has so much freedom, but they don't. More and more freedom means less and less family ties. And the freedom to become a dancing girl or to go and watch dancing girls, what kind of freedom is that? That's degrading to society and to the purpose of human life. Yeah, I was saying in ISKCON that even within ISKCON there are some who say, we can't do that. Let's be practical. Let's go along to a large extent with the modern society. And it's noted that Srila Prabhupada to some extent did that. Of course, almost everything that Srila Prabhupada did was completely shocking to normal human beings of the Western world. But he made some social adjustments. Considering that the social condition in the West is very different, seeing that women were interested to be Krishna conscious, as well as men, then he made some arrangement for them to stay in ashrams, although there was no such thing in traditional Indian society. So that's an example of Srila Prabhupada's it's one example of his great liberality and his desire to spread Krishna consciousness by all means. Seeing the problems inherent in the modern way of life and the modern way of thinking, he, from maybe the early 1970s, about 1973 onward, he spoke a lot about Varnasrama and the need to institute it, to regulate behavior among our devotees and among the society at large. One devotee mentioned to me, he said, it seems that in our society, ISKCON, it seems that the sannyasis who are more strict in their own like they have some kind of reputation of being somewhat strict, but they seem to be the ones who are more interested in promoting family life, stable family life, and he thought that was somewhat unusual. You might think that they're going to all the householders and telling them, this is all nonsense, give up your family immediately. But actually, this devotee was saying, it seems that those who are promoting or encouraging brahmachari life, they're also encouraging responsible grihastha life. But there is no contradiction therein. The point is that everyone in whatever status of life they may be in should try to make progress toward the ultimate goal of pure love of Krishna. What is a suitable social position for one may not be for another. But the point is, whichever ashram one may be in, one should be responsible. Human life is meant to live a responsible life. Understanding the point that human life is meant for God realization. Labdva sudurlabamidang bahusambhavante manusham artadam anityam api hadhira turnam yatetana patedana mritya yavan nishrayasaya vishaya kalu sarvata syat. We have attained this human birth after many, many births. One who is sober, having attained this human birth, considers very carefully that this human birth, although temporary, is very valuable because it gives us the opportunity to inquire into and attain the absolute truth. Therefore, considering that we all have to die very soon, one should, before dying, make a solution to the problem of death so that one does not have to die again. And one should not be fascinated by sense gratification, understanding that that is available in all species of life. Self-realization is available in only in the human form of life, we can say. So both, all the ashrams have their specific mode of activity. Brahmachari doesn't live like a grihastha. There's certain intrinsic differences. The point is, everyone should be responsible and act according to the principles of the ashram, the varna and the ashram as given in Shastra. The brahmachari in the modern age doesn't dress in the manner that is described by Narad Muni that we find in the 7th canto of Bhagavatam. But the essence of brahmachari life, that he is a student, inquisitive to study Shastra, that acharanda savan nichaha, he behaves in a very, like a slave, practically you could translate this. Dasavan means like a slave. Nicha, behaves like a slave, practically. Renounced, not making plans for sense gratification. And grihastha, some license for sense gratification. License means that also responsibly. The essence is not on sense gratification, the essence is on responsibility. The emphasis is on responsibility. So, sannyasi also should be strict, otherwise what's the meaning? Why take sannyas if you want to be a sense enjoyer? It doesn't make any sense. But sannyasi takes the role of being the spiritual leader of society. Although a Vaishnava, by being a Vaishnava, by worshipping Lord Vishnu, he's aiming at that sarvopadi vinir muktam, and therefore intrinsically there's no difference between, on the spiritual level, there's no difference between a Vaishnava of whether they're brahmachari, sannyasi, or whatever. At the time of death, it's not seen whether one's a brahmachari or a sannyasi or whatever. It will be seen how much one has sincerely served Krishna. However, within this world there are these social divisions, or there's supposed to be. We're supposed to be trying to introduce them. So those who may be living as strict sannyasis, they're also concerned that the grihastas, they live as responsible grihastas. Because unless the grihasta ashram is established, then there's no question of Varnashram society. And without Varnashram society, then we understand from Srila Prabhupada's emphasis on it that without Varnashram society, it will be very difficult to make the Krishna conscious movement solidly established within the world. There'll always be a state of social confusion, and then people they can't, with their minds. Anyway, in Kali Yuga, people's minds are always disturbed. But if they can't, if on top of the general disturbance, if they're always in anxiety about whether my wife's going to leave me or my husband's going to leave me or the children are going to beat me up, then it becomes more difficult to be Krishna conscious. We find so many examples of devotees that I want to be Krishna conscious but my wife doesn't, or I want to be Krishna conscious but my husband doesn't, I want to be Krishna conscious but my children are against it, and so on and so on and so on. So it is a great challenge to establish just normal, what should be considered normal, sane social relationships in Vaishnava society. That it's such a challenge just goes to show how much we're conditioned by the abnormal, insane society, where we consider it normal and it's considered acceptable in human society to have huge advertisements for prostitution. Actually, 150 dancing girls. What is that? It's an open advertisement for prostitution. So in Kali Yuga, the principal symptom is what? Prayanal payusha sabhya kalavasmin yuge janaha manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hi upadrutaha. Upadruta means? Disturbs. Can you translate the whole verse? I'm really putting you on the spot here, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so in Kali Yuga people, prayanal payusha sabhya. Yeah, people have short lives. Kalavasmin yuge janaha. Manda, that could be translated in many ways. Lazy, Prabhupada translates it here as lazy. Sumanda mati, which means rascal intelligence. Manda bhagya. And he, and certainly, Prabhupada here, this he could be used to emphasize all of them, but Prabhupada takes it that it's emphasizing the upadruta, and especially the mind is always disturbed. So this emphasis on sex, which is lust, karma, that is increasing and increasing and increasing the mental disturbance. Varnashram society it's aimed at Krishna, but the first principle is on cooling down this burning fire of lust, which means there should be some restrictions in the interactions of the sexes because of the fire and ghee principle. The ghee, if brought in proximity of fire, melts. The example is given in Shastra. So it's like it's a natural scientific principle which everyone can understand. You bring ghee close to fire and the ghee melts. So you bring man and woman close together without any restriction, and there is mutual attraction. So much of the regulation in Varnashram society is regulation of the association of men and women. But in modern society, they think this is primitive. This idea is the gift of a certain gentleman, or not gentleman, born in Czech, in Moravia, by the name of Sigmund Freud. I just learned he was born in Moravia. Czech Republic's contribution to the world, along with Franz Kafka and Czech beer. Well, let's make another contribution. Srila Prabhupada's books in Czech are now available, by which you can understand that Kafka and Freud are wrong. Actually, Prabhupada said that Freud, he was right, inasmuch as he recognized that sex is the driving force of human society. But he got it completely wrong, and totally screwed up the whole society by suggesting that we should pursue or promote sexual desires instead of trying to overcome them. He thought that suppression was the cause of all neuroses. And Kafka, like many others, was perceptive about the injustices and the absurdities and miseries of society and the human existential condition. But he had no solution. So, Prabhupada's books, they give the analysis clearly and the solution. So this is the greatest contribution to Czech culture ever is Prabhupada's books. And those who are following those books, living according to those books, they should, hopefully they will be recognized by society in due course of time as the actual leaders of human society. One who understands Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead has got a contribution to human society millions of times greater than millions of Kafkas, Freuds. Not millions of times, unlimited, because it's in a different dimension altogether. But we need to demonstrate this also, that these teachings are not just theoretical. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada was so much interested in establishing this Varnashram system as a practical system by which we can live in this world with Krishna in the center and become self-realized. And sannyasis, they're interested in this. They're interested in this because it's Prabhupada's mission. It's the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So a sannyasi who himself has vowed that his no more entanglement in family life, he is encouraging, yes, be good husband, be a good husband and father, be a good wife and mother. That for you, in your situation, for you to look after your children and raise them in Krishna consciousness, that is your devotional service. Not that you stop chanting Hare Krishna, but that raising children in Krishna consciousness is well, Srila Prabhupada said that for one of his disciples, lady who just had a baby, previously she was doing deity worship, Prabhupada said, now for you no more deity worship, now baby worship. Because to raise children in Krishna consciousness, that means to perpetuate and establish the Krishna conscious movement in human society. And that children have come means that they're sent. We should think that this child is sent. It's sent by Krishna, so we have to look after. Rishabdev says that one should not become a parent unless he can deliver the child from birth and death. So Grihastas, well, everyone has a difficult time, but for Grihastas and Krishna conscious especially, it's very difficult without this support of Varnashram society. They may be trying to follow the Vaishnava culture as best they can, but it's very difficult considering the economic necessities and the social pressures. So the sannyasis are also encouraging the householders, live responsibly, live responsibly. Don't unnecessarily make life complicated. And keep Krishna in the center, otherwise everything else is useless.
Yes.
With the pressure of earning money, and that in itself can take up, practically all your time and energy. But it's required that we have association, that we chant regularly, that we keep very clearly Krishna in the center of our lives. Of course, Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish these Varnashram rural communities so that householders don't have to become entangled in just working, but they can live simply and save time for engaging in the activities of Krishna consciousness. Principally, hearing and chanting about Krishna. So there are some thoughts on that topic. No doubt you've heard all of this before. And despite noble attempts, we're still quite a long way from establishing any ideal Varnashram community. That attempt has to be there. As Srila Prabhupada emphasized this so much. So, Hare Krishna. Any comments? Questions? Yeah, please.
He read some quotation from Chaitanya Charitamrita that husband and wife should have Krishna as a center of their activities, and he says something like a mediator, or I don't know where can it come from.
Better find the quote exactly, because if it's not clear, then how can we comment on an unclear quote? If you're not clear about the subject you're asking, then how can I clarify further? If the quote should be better to present the exact quote if you're not sure what it said.
Something that husband and wife should not consider themselves man and woman, but both as servants of Krishna.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But ultimately, we're not men, women, Brahmins, Vaishyas. We're all servants of Krishna. So that consciousness should be cultivated within the practical social framework of acting according to the particular social situation we're in. Just like Lord Chaitanya said, I'm not a brahmachari, I'm not a grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, I'm not a brahman, I'm not a kshatriya, not a vaishya or a shudra, but I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the husband of the gopis. But at the same time, he acted as a strict sannyasi. When he heard the beautiful singing of Gita Govinda, he ran to embrace the singer, thinking it's being so nicely sung. Gita Govinda is a song glorifying Krishna. But then his servant, who was also named Govinda, came running after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and shouted out that it's a woman singer. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the word woman, he stopped running. And he thanked Govinda. He said, "You have saved my life. As a sannyasi, if I had embraced a woman, I would have to end my life. It would have been the same as death for me." So the singer was singing very nicely for the pleasure of Krishna. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was appreciating that. So both are on the fully spiritual platform. But because the restriction between the social strictures governing interaction of men and women, and especially sannyasis and women, are so strict and so essential in human society, that in this case the social stricture takes precedence over the spiritual stricture. Misunderstanding of this principle can cause and is causing chaos in our Vaishnava society. Just like the day before yesterday, in one temple I saw, after I'd given a lecture, one lady devotee in a sari, one male devotee walked up to her in the temple room and embraced her. Like friend to friend kind of thing. It was a light embrace and not chest to chest, but that shouldn't be done. The idea is, well, we're all friends and we're expressing some friendship, but not like that. I know where this comes from. I know where this idea comes. You know where this comes from, right? There's some psychological seminars being promoted in which give up all your inhibitions. Don't see men as men. Don't see women as women. You're all spirit soul. Come to the spiritual platform. This is not the way to come to the spiritual platform. This is the way to get deeply into Maya. Now it seems that, well, if we're all spirit soul, then what's the problem? You know, spirit soul is in a man, spirit soul is in a woman, but you're not a man, you're not a woman. So actually that is the spiritual platform where we should all mix up like that. This is not a new idea. The degraded Sahajiya sects have been doing this for hundreds of years, even before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sahajiyaism was there before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Buddhist Sahajiyas. That, yes, we're all spirit soul, but nevertheless there are social restrictions. That Maya is so strong that we may say we're all spirit soul, but if the bodies come into proximity, even the bodies come into proximity without, if they just come into proximity, or if there's no regulation of social intercourse, then the sexual attraction will come about, even though we verbally say, I know I'm spirit soul. And even if a man and a woman, or even if spirit souls within the body of a certain man or a certain woman, even if they're both fully liberated, still they won't interact very freely, otherwise those who are not liberated will imitate that. Therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thanked Govinda that you saved me from the great transgression of embracing a woman. If he had done that, then he would have been severely blamed by all of society. Because sannyas, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, sannyasira alpa chidra sarva loke gai. If there's a little mistake, sannyasi is supposed to act ideally, but there's a little mistake in his behavior, everyone will broadcast it. And the people of wrong intentions would have taken advantage of that to justify their own bad behavior. So Vaishnava is a very responsible position. It should be ideal behavior. Then anything else?
He's heard that the book distribution is not the service which pleases Srila Prabhupada most. That Prabhupada said the most pleased he is if we develop love of God.
Well, that's true, but you're kind of phrasing it in a way that makes it sound like book distribution is something displeasing to Srila Prabhupada, which is really a misunderstanding. No, the fact is that the book distribution is very pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, but that we should keep it in perspective that the ultimate goal is not to become like a vending machine, but to develop love of Krishna. Vending machine is like, you put the money in, the cigarette packet or the Coca-Cola can comes out. So we're not just distributing books, but we have to develop love of Krishna. So we shouldn't take it, book distribution, Prabhupada is not interested. And it's not true at all. That's a complete misrepresentation. It is very pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, as he said on so many occasions. But, what all the books speak about is developing love of Krishna. So you shouldn't say, you're just a book distributor. I love God. I'm better than you. Love of God means service. So service in the present time especially means preaching the Bhakti cult, which there are various ways for preaching Krishna consciousness, of which principle Srila Prabhupada emphasized is distributing his books. So Srila Prabhupada said that helps to keep everything in perspective also. That yes, we have to distribute books, but we're not book distributing machines. We have to read the books. We have to chitete korea aikya. We have to take within our hearts the principles mentioned in the books. we have to hear and chant about Krishna and develop our attraction for Krishna. So it's very nice. You distribute the books, read about Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. You can translate that. So that Supreme Person, the Lord of all the worlds, is very happily dancing in the forest of Vrindavan, playing his flute and attracting all the living beings. When he plays his flute, the liquid of the Yamuna river becomes solid, the Yamuna becomes stunned, and the solid rocks, they melt in ecstasy. So this Krishna, you've heard of Krishna? We have to develop our love for Krishna. And all Varnashram, hearing, chanting, everything should result in the softening of the heart in attraction for Krishna. So we can pray for that. Pray for that and also meditate on that and hear about Krishna and Krishna-ize our lives so that we become attracted to Krishna, which is the natural propensity of the soul. This whole discussion of Varnashram is just to create a favorable situation in which individuals and the whole society can engage in hearing and chanting about Krishna and becoming attracted to Krishna. Why then should there be restrictions between men and women? Because it exacerbates the fire of lust, which is the great obstacle to developing our love for Krishna. Always keep in mind the goal. We are not mundane moralists. We worship the gopis, who from the external perspective were immoral. But our worship of the gopis doesn't mean that we try to imitate them in our social behavior. All these points have to be carefully understood. Anything else? All right, then let's chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And be careful also. To be happy on the platform of Krishna consciousness and not mix that up and confuse that with the false happiness that is offered by Maya. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada